Thank you for that update, Chemtaigo, in there speaking to us from county number 27 in Uasin-Gishu. And Irungu, you're finishing your thoughts on the impact of our social structures on the leaders that we eventually elect. Because even Commissioner Francis Wanderi, when we roped into him, he was actually talking about that. And he was talking about Kenyans, whether Kenyans are the problem or the leaders themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually this idea that anybody is a problem is not a good way of approaching it. I mean, I think people have their own ways of thinking about things, and there's definitely learned experiences and disappointments that many Kenyans have had with their leaders, whether it comes from corruption, abuse of office, or even just a lack of responsiveness to people's concerns. And, you know, you can't build, you can't create an active voter after 5 years of neglect. And I think that's the thing we have to keep saying to the leadership, and particularly to the 47+1 administrations that will come in, is that it's not enough to ask people to come out and vote after 6 months of campaigning. It is critical that they actually enshrine in all the processes of government public participation. I mean, that's what we voted for in 2010. That's the basis of Article 1. You can't have an active voter in the absence of an active citizen. And I think what we've missed in the last 5 years is really opportunities for people to understand how government works and to be relatively engaged, to be able to influence priorities and budgets. Now, it's going to be incredibly more important as we go into the next cycle, because if, you know, first of all, cost of living makes things, you know, existential for some people. It makes it really dangerous for people who have very limited incomes to understand whether they're going to take their children to school, or they're going to take their sick ones to hospital, or they're going to feed each other, or they're going to pay rent. But I think the other thing is really that there is a financial squeeze on government. So if we don't close the corruption, if we don't close the appetite for loans that are essentially crowding out public expenditure, the danger is that we're going to have a very volatile public constituency and a government that is not able to respond to them. So we have to find ways of creating participation and budget oversight. Yeah.
Joshua, do you agree with that statement? It's a very interesting statement that Irungu brought up, that you can't create an active vote after 5 years of neglect. Wouldn't that then be the main reason why the voter is actually active, because they're out to prove a point?
It's a mixed reaction for the voter. One, part of the reason why we don't see many people coming out to vote, there's an apathy. There's a question of, how does my vote count? So it has a 50% impact of people not showing up. But at the same time, the political conscious and angry voter will choose to express his anger or her anger by voting. I think we wait and see how much voter turnout we get, then we know what side it will tilt to in terms of, are we going to talk about an election where there's been a serious apathy, or have we seen voters coming out to express their pain? Because this one is an election on the backdrop of an economic crisis. I don't think this is an election that has been enthusiastic for Kenyans because of the issues and the challenges we've gone through. Remember, the last 5 years have been very difficult, considering that almost 2020 was lost because of COVID. And the net effect of COVID was economic downturn. We were already facing an economic problem. So COVID worsened it, and it was only a year or so, that is 1 year to the election. So I would agree with Irungu partly, but I would wait for the statistics. I would want to see how much have people voted. That's why I was concerned. Even if you look at the queues are not getting bigger as much, and we are 3 or 4 hours away to make that call and say, is it because of apathy? And I think the confidence of the voter is also coming into play. There's one perception that I think has been dodging this election, that elections are predetermined. It's a very common talk. Every normal Kenyan voter will tell you, so-and-so can win, except maybe Mepangwa. So that perception also eats into the confidence of the process. And I think IBC has a serious task today to try and do that perception. If the processes go well, and these small mishaps that have happened are not of significant impact in terms of at least anyone who went to the polling station voted, irrespective of time, and the results transmission holds 70% of a solution to this. If the results are transmitted properly and the announced winner right from the MCA to the president are what the majority of the voters agree and say, true, this is the winner, trust me, 2027, we may even see a bigger turnout because you're fighting those two perceptions. The first perception is that our elections are always compromised, and the second issue is the level of apathy coming from a case. You'll find someone who said, I've voted since 92, and my life hasn't changed. The same leaders, in fact, if you look at WhatsApp messages, people are sharing and telling each other, campaigns are over. Whoever had promised you, tomorrow they'll be mteja. So it is both sides. It is more like cross-border. It is not unique to a candidate. So the voters are reminding each other that, look, the bonanza is over. Number two, which is even dire, after the Supreme Court or declared that the CDF is unconstitutional, I also think that has an impact because the MP seats are competitive. And the moment you declare CDF as unconstitutional, so what are you telling the voter who had expectation? What are you telling the team of campaigners within the MPs? The MPs are the majority. They are 290. In fact, I think they have to benchmark with the senators as to how to be a legislature without a kitty. MCS were even making fun, say, now we are all the same. We normally fight for what development fund. The MPs have never been on our side. Now we are on the same platform. We are all legislatures. So that also comes into play. And remember, our elections are very cannibalistic. People vote, people participate with an expectation. Leave alone the civic duty of expecting development. People have direct interest, personal interest in it. So the moment Supreme Court announces that there will be no CDF, you are sure that that also has an impact. So let us wait for the statistics. As at 12, it was 6 million. That was below par. Because at 30%, we are 20% less deficit because we were expecting at 12 or 1, we would be doing half the voters, which should be around 9 million. With 6 million, that's 3 million less. And as I keep saying, I'm optimistic and hopeful that Kenyans being Kenyans, and Safaricom always say Kenyans have a peculiar habit. Let us prove our peculiarity by showing up the last 2 hours.
They are cutting it close because it's 2 hours.
Really, it was Michael Joseph who said we are a peculiar lot.
And he provided no statistics, right?
At all.
But this is one of the phrases that we continue to hear for decades after he said it, for years. I wanted to come back to, there's a Greek society which used to vote everybody off and only vote for the ones they wanted to keep. And it was basically the same phrase as we used to have fagia wote, like let's get rid of the whole bunch. Now, I think that's an extreme position to take, but I think what's really important is for the members of parliament who ran thinking that they were going to have access to this kitty. I think it is a good wake-up call for them and a reminder that actually legislators are not members of the executive. They are not part of the executive. And therefore, I would actually welcome this because I think it does reduce another pillar of the violations of Chapter 6.
All right.